Welcome back to The Explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to map out exactly how our world is shifting right before our eyes, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking a massive global trend that's dominating headlines and, frankly, reshaping societies. We are looking at the anatomy of modern youth protests. We're going to break down how Gen Z is driving systemic global change, taking things from online outrage to boots on the ground and ultimately forcing real legislative reform. And we're really going to hone in on the lasting legacy of these student protests. Okay, thousands of young people out into the streets are raw, visceral, intensely local catalysts. Let's look at two stark examples from the data. Over in Serbia, in November 2024, there was this deadly collapse of a railway station roof in Novi Sad that killed 16 people. This tragedy, which was widely blamed on corruption, was the ultimate trigger. It sparked students to literally blockade universities. Then, in India, mid-2026, it was the NEET UG exam paper leaks. Millions of students felt their academic futures were literally stolen from them through systemic unfairness. So these aren't just abstract debates, they are immediate, life-altering crises of trust that ignite a really fiery response. Let's move to and see how this builds. Watch how rapidly things escalate in India. Once that initial spark happened with the exam leak, the momentum was relentless. Over the following weeks, a youth-led movement called the Cockroach Janata Party, or CJP, launched a massive 37-day protest. This unrelenting pressure led directly to the resignation of the Union Education Minister by July 2026. And by late July, the government was already introducing brand new legislation into parliament to address the crisis. It's moving at warp speed. Now, what made the Indian students so incredibly effective was the absolute clarity of their mission. Notice their three highly focused demands right here. They weren't just asking for vague systemic overhauls. No, they wanted the minister's resignation, the immediate withdrawal of police cases against their fellow protesters, and financial compensation for the grieving families of NEET aspirants. Having this level of highly specific organization makes it so much harder for authorities to just wave away a movement as aimless youth anger. Moving on to Section 2, Digital Age Mobilization, Organizing in the Modern Era. So once that spark is lit, how does Gen Z actually mobilize massive crowds without relying on traditional media? Well, just look at this quote. "You pissed off the wrong generation." This became a huge viral slogan for the Bulgarian Gen Z protests in late 2025. Young content creators and artists basically bypassed official government narratives altogether. They used TikTok hashtags to mobilize the youth, and they even flew drones over the protests to capture their own footage. This proved the sheer scale of the crowds when official channels were trying to downplay their size. It's just an incredibly tech-savvy way to take complete control of your own narrative. And the thing is, these movements are deliberately leaderless. They're completely decentralized. In Morocco, the Gen Z 212 movement popped up purely through online networks to organize national conversations, meaning there was no single identifiable leader for authorities to arrest or silence. Same deal in Thailand. During the February 2026 elections, citizen journalists live-streamed the ballot boxes to flag irregularities. They blasted the news across social media, totally outpacing the traditional 24-hour news cycle. Which brings us to Section 3, the political pushback, the inevitable clash. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how every massive action faces an equally fierce political reaction. Look at how this intense gridlock plays out in India. On one hand, you have Congress leader Rahul Gandhi praising the protests as a deep expression of the youth that absolutely must be respected. On the flip side, you have BJP MP Sambit Patra arguing that Congress historically ignored Gen Z and even claiming previous Congress governments fired upon student movements. What we're seeing here is both major political factions intensely battling to win that crucial Gen Z vote, effectively turning the students' demands into a central feature of national debate. But political debate is only one form of pushback. Sometimes the reaction is far more severe. Take a look at this number, 1,636. That is the number of arrests reported in Serbia between June and September of 2025. As students kept protesting the railway tragedy and demanding accountability, the government's response was a heavy authoritarian crackdown. They intensified repression across universities and media, and, this is wild, even deployed unidentified sonic weapons against peaceful demonstrators in Belgrade. It really highlights the severe physical risks these students face when they decide to push back against entrenched regimes. All right, Section 4, Forcing Legislative Change, the tangible results. This brings us to the crucial so what question. Did all this digital mobilization and immense physical risk actually achieve anything? The data says yes. In India, that 37-day agitation achieved a concrete legislative victory. The government formally introduced and passed the Public Examinations Amendment Bill of 2026. And this wasn't just some symbolic gesture. The bill explicitly aimed to dismantle the entire paper leak ecosystem by introducing fast-track courts, enhanced investigations, and strict penalties for exam fraud. The youth literally forced the hand of the government to rewrite the law. So the crucial point is that the true legacy of these modern youth movements is that they don't simply pack up and go home after a bill is passed. Just look at this quote from CJP founder Abhijit Dipki. He made it crystal clear that if the government fails to deliver on its promises, they are fully prepared to launch a protest 2.0. Modern protest movements are highly vigilant. They view legislative victories not as the finish line, but as a mechanism to hold power perpetually accountable. Which naturally leads us to Section 5, Legacy of Student Protests, Victory or Absorption. When the dust settles, what is the long-term geopolitical legacy of these movements? How do established powers adapt? Well, Morocco provides a fascinating example, and this brilliantly illustrates a trend. Savvy governments are learning. Instead of violently crushing the Gen Z 21 movement, the Moroccan government took a totally different approach. Government ministers went on the leading state television network to address the social grievances directly. They slowly absorbed the shock of the youth protests, recentering the narrative within the state's familiar language of sovereignty, stability, and national cohesion. They didn't fight the wave, they co-opted it. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. When we look at the legacy of massive student protests across the globe, are these rapid legislative changes and televised addresses true, lasting victories for the youth? Or is the establishment simply learning how to adapt, absorb, and ultimately neutralize the power of the modern digital protest? Honestly, it's a dynamic that is going to define the politics of the next decade. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the structures around you, and I will see you in the next one.